We frequently recommend Anker products to you guys on the channel all the time. We leave links to their website, and we've purchased things from their website in the past before. We kind of realized like we've never really gotten the full experience from Anker, so we decided to mystery shop them.
We made up names, addresses, and reasons for calling. We blocked their numbers and gave them a call.
We did call both sales and tech support sides of the company to make sure that we get a full, well-rounded picture of them. And most importantly, we wanted to have confidence to continue sending you guys there to purchase products or find out if we need to send you guys somewhere else completely. Obviously, like everything else on this channel, this video is not sponsored. They had no idea we were calling. In fact, we're gonna send them the footage of this before we post it to make sure that they do not sue us for doing so. So that's that. Let's see how the calls actually went. So first we called the sales side of the company. We wanted to try to avoid the F3800 being like the suggested product. I feel like that's just too easy. It's like their main go-to. Everybody's gonna try and push it on you. So we gave them scenarios that we hoped they wouldn't recommend the F3800 for. So I called first and I was on hold for only about 2 minutes.
Thank you for calling Anker. How can I help you?
Hey man, how are you?
Doing well, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm not sure who answered. Anker doesn't seem to say the name when they answer the phone, but immediately we knew it was an American, which was nice to hear. When we called EcoFlow, I don't think we got a single American person on the phone.
No.
Anyway, so I explained my use case to him. I wanted a unit for camping. I'm looking just for something that I can take camping with me and whatever. The main thing that I use it for is like a 12-volt fridge that I run when I go camping. And he started by asking really good questions.
Does it tell you how much current it also outputs, or if it doesn't say the current, which is in amps, it'll also say the wattage, which is the power consumption, and how long did you want this to last for?
And he did the math based on what I told him and then for the amount of time that we said.
Battery will take 48 hours and multiply that by the 50 watts. So that 50 watts is what it's pulling per hour. So if you multiply that by 48 times 50 is 2,400.
He did do the math a little, what we would have said wrong at first. I told him the fridge uses 50 watts. He calculated it to use 50 watts just continuously every hour the whole time. And when I questioned him on it, I'm like, is that not, don't fridges run intermittently? Like, isn't that kind of how a fridge works? He was like, yeah, you're right. I just don't know what fridge you have. I don't know where you live. I don't know any of that. So he's like, I'm just doing the math based on worst case scenario, which is it's always running, which was cool to show that he did understand it, and he explained it to me so I understood it back.
Yep.
And after he made sure that I understood why he did that, he recommended the F2000.
So basically the exact device that would actually run that is the F2000.
Okay.
That would be the device that could run that 50 watt refrigerator constantly for 48 hours without, any additional charging or...
Which was a little weird because he said you're gonna need 2,400 watt hours. I recommend the F2000. It's a 2,000 watt hour battery. And so initially we're like, you're on track, but you missed.
Not gonna make the cut.
Yeah, you missed just a little bit.
So even though he had given us a unit that was a little bit undersized, he did recognize that, okay, maybe the scenario wasn't quite lining up, and he gave us the math on how to maybe figure that out ourselves, which we thought was pretty good.
You could do the math yourself or reach back out, but it's basically, the amount of hours that you're trying to run it, 48 times whatever they say the actual wattage is, if it's not 50.
Okay.
That'll tell you the watt hours. So let's say it's way lower and it's around 1,000, right? Then our C1000 would be able to cover it. So it all depends on what that continuous wattage, that average wattage would be.
He made sure that we actually understood how to do the math. And then he said, just call the company that your fridge is from, find out how efficient it really is, how frequently it's going to turn on, or plug it into something and measure it yourself. And then he basically made sure that when we left the call, we knew how to do the math to pick our own unit on our own time. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, you don't have to call back, here's how you do it. So that was cool. He didn't try to push anything on us. He didn't oversize anything. He maybe undersized it a little bit, but that was the first time in a while that we've mystery shopped someone, and when the call was over, we were like,
we actually learned something.
I could do this, yeah.
So next up, I gave them a call back. We were on hold for about 3 minutes, which wasn't too bad, but a little bit longer than some of our others. So in my scenario, I was looking for power for my cabin. So I currently have a system that is a bit of a makeshift system, bit of a more DIY. So it was kind of a good scenario to try and figure out. I have a little cabin. I didn't know if you could help me with some advice on getting myself set up with a bit of a power unit. If I give you kind of some specs on what I'm running in there. I let him know some of the things I was running. If I have all the lights on, I'm running around 112 watts. I have a mini fridge rated for 100 watts, but I think I've got it calculated out about like 600 watts a day. I run a fan, which is 30 watts. I have a water pump at 165 watts. So he was a really good listener. I was giving him a little bit of a mixed take on some of our appliances, some a bit an hourly take on what their usage was.
Some was more like a daily. So you some of them you're like, oh, it uses 50 watts, and some you're like, it uses 100 watts per day. And he immediately was like, whoa.
Yeah, really quickly. So you're saying that the fridge was 600 watts for the day, and then is the fan back to like hourly consumption?
Yes, yeah.
Which again was just cool.
Yeah.
Good listening skills. He identified a problem before he went off on the wrong track.
So he was really good about trying to get an understanding of what I was going to be using this system for and how I was going to be bringing that to the cabin. He did also ask us whether I would be wanting some solar panels to go along with the unit, or whether the intention was to charge the unit at home and then bring it with me every weekend. So that was nice to know that he was kind of thinking outside of the box a little bit. So once he felt like he had a pretty good grasp on the scenario that we had thrown at him, he did also recommend the F2000.
So let's say you went with the F2000. So if you take 2,000 in the battery capacity of the F2000 and you divide that by 55 continuous watts, that would actually last for about 36 hours. But you're saying you want about 48 hours?
Yeah, for sure. And then maybe a little wiggle room. Shortly after, he realized that might be a little bit undersized for what we were looking for and offered up the F2600.
I mean, the next one up is the 2600. So 2600 divided by 55, that would get you just about 47.2 hours.
His next recommendation was an expansion battery, which is a great addition to the F2600. He offered us two different battery sizes, one smaller, one larger, which I kind of like the flexibility of being able to gauge how much power I need and maybe play into the budget that you have available to you.
Yeah, but he's like, you don't need the full-size expansion battery. With your math, you could do the smaller one, which again was just kind of cool. He kept explaining everything to us like really well.
So we then went into the solar. He did tell us that a 400 watt panel would be enough for what I needed. It would create more power than what I was using in most cases and support me for the course of the 2 days that I would be there.
He also did a good job of like, we would ask a simple question. You asked like, how big is the inverter on the F2600? And he didn't just say, oh, it's 2600 watts. He was like, it's 2600 watts, which means you can do this, that, explained the limits of it, the surge capacity, the continuous usage. Like, he took every question as an opportunity to literally teach us stuff.
Overall, this was a great call. Like in the perfect world, that's how you get handled every time you call for either service or tech.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think thumbs up on that one.
Yeah. The only flaw that we found with calling Anker's sales was that when you call the number, they give you all of Anker's companies, and they're a pretty big company. So like the first thing says Anker charging,
Which
easy.
I clicked.
Yeah, very easy to click because you're like, yeah, charging, power station, duh.
Yeah.
But what you actually want to click is Anker Solix, which is like the 6th option. And if you click the first one and you tell them anything, they say, whoa.
That would be something you would direct to our sales team. You would send an email to support@anker.com.
But the only way I can do that is by emailing the team?
That is correct, yeah. We don't have any sales support over the phone. It's just through email.
Confusing to someone who clicks the wrong button if they don't realize they clicked it. It would be cool if they said, oh, you pressed the wrong button, press 6 for Solix, instead of like, oh, you have to email, because sometimes people just want to chat, they don't want the email. Yeah. But that was the only thing. Otherwise, that was like, yeah, pretty much like a poster for how you want calls to go.
Yep.
Yeah, so then we decided to hit up tech support and try to ask them a couple questions and see how good of a knowledge they had of the products. So I ended up calling first. There was no hold time. I immediately got on the phone with someone and I was asking about the generator adapter. We recently made the F3800 Plus video. The generator adapter says it'll charge up to 6,000 watts. But we had a problem where we're realizing it doesn't charge up to 6,000 watts. There's contingencies, and a lot of creators are saying different things, and Anker's website says different things. And then we knew the answer eventually because we had already figured this out on our own, but we wanted to see if they knew the answer. So I'm just wondering if there's something I'm missing or like a setting or something I need to change to make it get there.
The input on the 3800 Plus can reach 6,000 with an input from like a gas generator.
Okay.
That outputs that at 240 volts. So that's how you would achieve that max 6,000 watt.
So he started by explaining the cable, how it works, what you need, and he told me it should be able to charge one unit at 6,000 watts. When we questioned him a little bit and we're like, but it doesn't work, he took a minute, put us on hold, whatever, came back and was like,
oh, I do understand what you're saying with the 6,000 watts. It does look like you can reach those speeds if you do have an expansion battery attached to it.
Which is partially true, and then we're like, okay, how many? And he said you need one. So I just need the one battery for that?
Right.
Okay.
When you do pair those together, then the inverter will allow 6,000 watts.
And when we asked him about it a couple of times, he just said, yeah, it's only one, which is incorrect. And the only reason that that's a problem is because if I had bought that unit and the generator cable, and then he's like, okay, I'm like, it's not working. And he goes, okay, buy a battery. Then I spend money on a battery. Then it still isn't working. Then I call back and they're like, oh, buy another battery. It's like, at what point do you start to feel like you're just getting run over by this company? The reality is, when we made our video, we were on the phone with Anker's engineering team trying to figure this out because everybody seemed to be confused about it. To charge with a generator cable, it's 3,300 watts with one unit, 4,500 watts with a one unit and a battery, 6,000 watts with one unit and two batteries.
And at the end of the day, I think it's a lot about like shopping with confidence. So sure, if it's nice to know that you can, you know, buy those batteries and achieve that charge rate, that's fine up front. But if you're buying a product and then kind of being fished on to purchase more items and then still not happy with the result, then how can you go forward with that brand and continue to be confident with their sales, service, and products at the end of the day?
Yeah, like if that was a real situation and we bought the battery, then we would have been like, it still doesn't work, and they would have been like, you need another battery. We would have been like, I don't believe you. That's what you already told us, right? Yeah, so that part's frustrating. They're like 50% of the way there.
So for my call, we threw out a question about peak shaving and a transfer switch, which seems pretty simple, but maybe we set it up a little bit too complex. But to start the call off, we were on hold for about 50 seconds, which wasn't too bad. We were pretty happy with that. So I was asking them about peak shaving with an F3800 and a transfer switch that I already have. So he was pretty good about explaining the app and how to peak shave.
For that, you're going to need to make use of time of use mode. Time of use lets you define what times are peak and what times are off peak, which means what times you want the battery to power your house and what times you want the house to power the battery.
But where it got a little bit confusing on our end was when I started introducing the transfer switch and how that applied. I also didn't know if I'm looking to run anything off of the 240 outlet during the time that it's charging in the evening, will it stop the function of that 240?
No.
So I should be able to use the outlet while it's charging at the higher rate?
No, wait, no, I'm sorry.
So as a team, we got a little out of hand. We probably could have kept it a little simple, but the whole transfer switch situation started to really confuse him. I only have a transfer switch.
Is that the one with all the different switches to flip?
Yes.
Okay, that is a little bit different.
And you could tell he wasn't really confident in his answers at that point.
We told him a real thing, which was we had like the manual transfer switch. We should have just said it was like a generator inlet box so that it was simple. But then he was starting to think too much about the transfer switch, and everybody got a little bit confused.
Yeah. So he did offer to look into it, send us an email, and follow up later on, which he did do within a day, which was an awesome turnaround in my opinion.
Yeah, he sent an email, and the email had all the right info. Like he said, you can't input 120 while you're dispersing 240. If you have this transfer switch, here's what you would have to do. Like, he did the right things. At the end of the day, with Anker, I think in terms of tech support, there's still a little bit of training that can be done there, but compared to some other companies, the product knowledge is there. You could tell that they know it, and I don't know how long Anker's had like a solid tech support line, so this might be kind of still in the early stages. Yeah. If it is, good job. If it's been a while that they've been doing this, a little bit of work, less of a good job, a little bit of work to do, but better than some other people, still room for improvement. And to close this out, Anker as a direct brand, not shopping through like a third party, compared to other direct brands, killed it. Their sales was way better than we've ever gotten from a direct brand, and their tech support was better than we've ever gotten directly from a brand. So at the end of the day, it's nice to see big companies that you know are making loads of money, investing that into their support and making sure that when you call, you have a good experience. We would say we're still confident to send you guys there to purchase products. So that's pretty much it. Let us know if there's any other companies that you guys want us to mystery shop. We're always down to try and make sure that we're sending you guys to the right places. Otherwise, make sure you guys are subscribed if you're not already, and we will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out and stay charged.